welcome to another episode of Senshi Cosplay Myth Podcast. I am Rebecca, and this is my co-host Deborah. And today's topic, we are going to be talking about photography and posing. And to join us today, we have a special guest, Casey, who is also our behind the scenes guy who's been helping us with all this recording. So all of the cool recording stuff you see, all this background, everything, that's all him. So thank you so much, Casey. And welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Yeah. So as I was saying, today's topics are photos and posing, which we're still learning a lot about ourselves, which is why we're asking Casey to help us. And if you guys have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment or suggestion down below in the comments. Just a reminder to everyone, this is a pre-recorded thing, so we're not going to actually see them, but we always love seeing comments. All right. So, Casey, you've been doing photography a lot longer. But I'm doing as social media coordinator for SenshiCon. I've done some and I've posted a lot, but you've done like more professional style photography. So you know a lot more about it. So take it away. Help educate us all.
Yeah. If I could talk a little bit about just kind of my past of doing photography for both SenshiCon, outside of SenshiCon, and being hired for doing photography with cosplayers and more. Doing weddings and doing things like that. Sticking with the cosplay theme type stuff, I've always done it as just a means to build my own skill set. That's something that I just decided one day I'm gonna take a tiny loan and go buy a camera and turn that into a hobby that I like to do on the side. And it literally did start with knowing people who did cosplay and the stuff that I ask, hey, you want to go do a photo shoot at the flat top hill area or something where we have a cool background? And most people would say, yeah, let's do it. I'd love to get some photos done for so-and-so's character that they're doing. And that's kind of just how it started. And then I put myself out there to do more than just that by working events for SenshiCon. And when there was in between things, just take the camera and go take photos of people here and about around a convention center, Egan Center, for instance, when we were there. A lot of that kind of stuff. I just enjoyed it. It was just super fun. I learned a lot about some of the things that we'll be talking about today. So like stage lighting, controlled lighting, the inside photography, outside photography, what the changes are, the camera settings for all that kind of stuff. And then also working with people. It definitely helped me open up to be able to talk to people that I'm not used to talking to or normally comfortable talking to. That's a way of kind of stepping yourself out of your bounds and being like, all right, I really want to get this photo of this cool cosplayer. I need to ask this person for a photo. I got to step out of my bounds and just ask. And in most cases, they want a photo done, and you're the one with the camera, so you got to step out there and do it. So I've learned a lot about photography from that kind of stuff. It's been great.
So you were mentioning.
Go ahead.
Yes, go on. So you were mentioning.
I was just gonna bring us into the first topic here. I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. There's a slight delay, everyone. So we're all trying to be polite and wait for the other person, but we're also like, oh, da, 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 da. Oops. Okay.
Struggle is
Casey,
real.
Take us away.
Yeah, so like the first topic area we were going to talk about is the outdoor photography. Before we get into that, of course, it's a little bit more about me. Harlan Productions is what my business was when I started doing photography, and that's what I started with was photos. And then I went on to doing a lot more type production stuff. And then Geeks the Last Frontier, or GLF, was kind of just like another way of doing all of that kind of work, but with more people involved with all that. But to get into our topic, let me get up our first photo. I have examples of, because, that's what I did. So, first photo example here was with a cosplayer. Her name is, or their name, sorry, excuse me, is Cookie. In this photography here, as you can kind of see, this is outdoors. We had a dusk nighttime type shot. The sun is definitely well down, but we still had some light. So our challenge here was, well, we wanted a photo shot that looked cool in the dark with the sun going down. But of course, when it's dark and you try to take any kind of photo in the dark, you lose a lot of what we call information. The data on the screen or on the picture can be lost. So we had to be really creative on how we shot this photo, and all the lighting around Cookie's face was using I think it was 2 cell phones with the little lights turned on, so that we can have that glow, enough of it to get information out of the face. And then, of course, some post editing to help alleviate some of that darkness that was around underneath the eyes and around the hairline stuff, just to kind of get some of that detail back. So very challenging to shoot photography in the dark when you're trying to make it look dark, shooting in the dark, and then adding in lighting as needed.
Yeah.
The control of this is real tricky.
We all tried to talk at the same time. Yeah. Go, Deborah.
Okay. I was going to say, you were saying at the time, like, you only had, 2 cell phones and whatnot, which is probably, most amateur photographers probably only have. With your more experience now, do you have, what equipment would you recommend for those who want to do shots more like this?
There is lots of like portable LED lights, like a battery powered light that you can get for real cheap. It's like a LED switch, turn it on and off. Some of you guys are using those kinds of lights right now. In fact, I have one as well here in the corner, just brightening up my face here on the side, as you can see my shadow there.
This thing?
Yeah, it's a little battery powered light that can help make the scene a little bit more bright overall, and it's portable.
Like one campers use, like sometimes, like those.
Yeah, you can really use any kind of lighting that you can find for pretty cheap, or potentially already have. The little lanterns, camping lanterns, work real well. But yeah, all we had at the time, like I said, was phones, and it was like a spur of the moment. I was like, I need light. Who's got cell phones? We need lights. And sometimes not even so. Like this is an iPhone that has the one little light on the back. Sometimes that's not enough. So using like a white screen from the front of the phone might allow for even more light spreading across an area, rather than just one of these were little back camera lights that's just like a spot of light. So you need more of a fill of light. In this case, we at least had 2 phones to kind of equal the lighting on that. So that was nice.
It also sounds like you had a helper, because it's like, oh, camera, 2 phones. Problem.
Yeah, I believe. So this photo was taken during one of the gaming conventions that we did in the past. And they wanted some outdoor photos done and wanted nighttime photos. So I think there was a group cosplay. So we there was probably like 5 of us or so.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that one's kind of an example there of like dark lighting, but still making it work with what we had, which I had my nice Canon camera, or Nikon camera, and then we just had to make up lighting. Now, of course, a camera does also have built-in flash, like it's got its own really high-powered flash, but those are kind of undesirable because it's really going to be a really bright white flash, and it would change the whole picture So we were going for that it still looks dark outside kind of photo. So that's kind of what this was. We wanted to keep it dark looking, so we used a little bit of extra light rather than a lot of extra light.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I can
right.
just imagine the flash would go and all like it. You just would have like bright. It would look very bright. It looked like it was daylight.
Yeah, if you've ever taken a photo with one of those like wind-up cameras that has the flash on it, that's a good example of that, where it's just this boom flash of light to fill in everything for darkness.
Yeah, I know like some of the risks with using flash as well is that it can flush out people as well. Like that's my biggest problem is I'm already pale enough. You get me on a flash and I might as well not be there. I'm a ghost. I am the flash now.
We can use you as white balance.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
I have another example of outdoor lighting that was more sunny. This photo here is a photo of our friend David. He is cosplaying as, I think it's a Pokemon character.
It's one of the professors, isn't it?
Yeah, he's one of the professors. I can't think of the name. If you guys are watching or you know the name, definitely toss it in the comments section. I can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
Is it from Sun?
But yeah, we did like a Pokemon gathering at a park. So he came as that, and like he was a newly announced character. So I can't think of what it was, or which game it came from.
I've lost track so much of the Pokemon. I'm like, I know the first 151, and then I'm lost. I know a handful after that.
Yeah, I want to say it starts with a K. It's like cool. I don't know. I'd have to look it up, which would require me going through Facebook photos again.
Yep. But yeah, no, it's a much brighter picture.
Oh yeah, it's Kukui, I think. That's how you say that. Kui.
Kukui? Yeah.
Kukui.
Yeah, it's from Sun and Moon.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one everyone would take over until the gym leaders got announced. I don't know. Will it show?
Oh, yep, we can see it. There he is. Yeah.
Nice.
I remember David, when he showed up in this, he was like, this is the easiest cosplay I've ever made. And he made the whole thing. So super cool.
Nice.
And in fact, the hat was just, like a blank white hat that he bought from, the craft store. And then he used, I think, acrylic paint to do the rainbow on the top, because that had the best color pop on white. Excuse me. And it worked really well for the photos, because it popped right off the photos real easy. I didn't have to do too much post editing to try to make that come out of the area. But speaking of outside photography, and this one being outside in more of a sunny weather, daytime, I wanted to bring this photo in because David is also wearing a hat, and he's wearing glasses too. So the challenge in this photo is that exactly he's because he's wearing a hat, the sun, the lighting of the environment is above him, and his hat, of course, is blocking the sun. So we had to ensure that in the position that we were taking the photo, we wanted to make sure there was still a lot of light coming into the face area. And if I needed to do any of post editing to kind of brighten up that area to actually see his eyes and see his just underneath his hat there.
And also not to catch yourself in the glasses and the reflection.
yeah, that's too very true. He is like slightly looking down,
and you can see his arm. You see the reflection of his arm.
Yeah, in the white spot on the glasses on the right side, or on his right side.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, especially with glasses. Or if anybody's wearing like mirrored glasses or anything like that, it's hard to not be in the photo at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. So I guess in outdoor photography, you have to be more aware of your lighting because you have less control. I mean, there are ways that you can kind of like compensate, like you can bring out extra lights with you to brighten things up, but shadows and things are something you have less control over. Versus like if you're indoors, you can be like, oh, well, move this light here, turn that light off, switch this around. So I guess
that's exactly right.
there are, yeah, there's advantages and disadvantages because outdoor lighting, you get a more natural light, a more natural color. Indoor lighting, you have a lot more control over what you're doing.
Yeah, and in this environment that we were in at the park, I think there was also like a lake there, or a little pond. So we were actually utilizing the lake pond thing to reflect light off the water
Ooh.
and onto him to allow for a little more low light to come back up to him. So just thinking outside the box sometimes to provide extra lighting that you don't have on site.
Creativity is a cosplayer's best friend.
Yeah, and then just having fun.
Yeah, that too.
And I believe in this photo we had David standing on something, so he looked really tall. I think the professor is a tall character.
He is, yes.
So to me, I'm 6'3", so when I'm taking photos, I'm pretty high up already. So I was like, let's put David up taller than me, so we can get a cool photo.
Yep.
And I
small.
think
I get that.
I think we're at the Lusac Library Park area, if I remember right for this. And it's got that little pond right there.
It looks like it from the background.
Yeah, I think that's that track behind him. Well, we were trying to make it look like we weren't downtown or midtown. So the background of the photo helped a ton to sell that it's a professor out in the field, or in this case, on an island. So we were trying not to have too much background noise, do too much distracting things that would take you away from looking at just the subject, the cosplayer.
Yep.
Yeah. So you spoke a bit about the inside photography. We can move over to that because controlled lighting is definitely key for when you're inside. But first, we're going to talk about stage lighting. So this is a photo here of Cosplay Craze, where I was kind of doing event photography as well as portrait photography, which we'll get into in a minute. Of course, this is stage photography of some of the GLF members being goofy on stage doing something. I don't know what's going on here.
So I have a quick question because I think I totally missed all the Cosplay Craze. What was that? Because I think I missed that. I was off doing something and it passed by.
Yeah, it was just an outside of SenshiCon event held by SenshiCon staff, as well as Harlan Productions and a little bit of the GLF staff, where we just kind of put on a free to go to cosplay event in the middle of summer. So that was the difference, was to have something to do during spring break for kids at the UAA Center. And in this case, it was the GLF guys put together some stage show type stuff. And that's David there in the blue jacket hosting something. I don't know what this event was. We got Carson. I think it's Lauren that's underneath all that stuff on stage. And then Tabitha on the far right there. She was staff of SensiCon back then. But other than the just kind of the stage things and things to cosplay to, I believe we also had the gaming area in the lounge room, and then I think we had another room for playing the ninja game where you move your hands according to other people to try not to get hit. It's a totally fun game. Just basically an activity type convention happening during spring break.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to what we were talking about, taking photos on stage, which you do have in this case, usually the stages we're dealing with are indoors. So you have lighting, but not much control over said lighting. Usually you have a lot of lighting.
In this case, there was a lot of lighting, all of which I couldn't do anything with. And as you can see, it also kind of added just like an orange tone, just like it just looks kind of orange all over. Everybody's skin color is really orange. It's just kind of an orange environment. But yeah, because there was no way to control the light, I can only take photos of what's there. So in this case, it just wasn't great. But I'm also just capturing moments. Hired, but taking photography of the event and just things that are happening. This kind of lighting worked okay for that, but in some cases it doesn't. I couldn't find any examples of super washed out looking faces, and that washed out means there's too much light and it just gets too bright for the camera to see what the information is on screen.
I mean, we can show them if you want. I did a test earlier.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So
watch Deborah's screen there at the top.
Light behind. So let me change the color, but yeah, it just keeps going.
We've lost Deborah. Yeah. We've lost Deborah.
Yeah, and if you can kind of see there, her own camera is actually trying to correct the brightness. But in most cases, the camera that I was shooting with, I had it set to all manual settings. So I would still adjust for the lighting, but then I would only be adjusting for the light that was on their face and not the whole cosplay. And then you would lose information elsewhere. So it's very challenging to take photos sometimes when you can't control the light, or if the light was not set up very well. If it was only set up to be at the upper area of their whole body instead of the whole stage. That has happened before.
Yeah. It's also a problem if you're... sorry, you go, Deborah. No.
Okay. I was gonna say, I know one of the more common problems, and best way for I guess our audience to really understand is if you ever go to a play and you're trying to get photos of the performers, the photos always come washed out. I have never gotten a good photo of the people the actors and those on stage. It's always they're washed out, and yeah, that's the best way for everyday people to kind of get that. What were you saying, Rebecca?
Yeah, I was saying when I'm at SenshiCon and I'm trying to take pictures, moment pictures where I'm just snapping a quick photo of whatever's going on stage, the people are almost always washed out. You can't see them really well. A lot of detail is lost. But I mean, it's just a really quick photo. I'm just trying to say, oh, this is going on at the stage here. But later on, you go back and you look at it and you're just like, who is that? What's going on? And later on, you go and you look at other pictures where you get better images of cosplays, and you're like, oh my gosh, that cosplay has so much detail, and it's just gone.
Yep.
Yeah, the in some cases, a phone photo versus a good camera photo is how fast those devices can take the photo. So it needs to process. If there's good lighting, it'll take the photo pretty quick. But if it's semi-bad lighting, it'll have to take longer to take the photo to process more of that darkness information. And then that's where blurriness comes from photos. So if you ever get a photo of someone right when they move or right after they move, that's where the blurriness comes from, is because there's not enough light for the camera to capture in fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to a good point of, when you're on stage, to let the photographers have enough time to take your photo.
Yeah. Which in this case means usually, like, enough people, I guess, have seen when we do like the cosplay walk on, and it's just people, they come on stage, they reach a particular marker. And if you just stand there and count in your head 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, or just like get there, go ta-da, and walk off, that gives you, it gives the photographers just that moment to go click.
Yeah. And that's something that cosplayers, something we do need to practice. Because I do know, like, for myself, is I just think like, oh, a quick like tee-hee kind of thing, quick pose. I have to remember, I've got to pause, and I just can't go, okay, here, we're done. For you guys, it's not quite as simple and so we need to remember that as cosplayers too, is to give you guys the time to snap it. Just think of like the older days, like with the photos where you have to stand still for a full like 5 to 10 seconds even. But, and I know it's nerve-wracking to stand that still for so long, especially on stage. Oh, that terrified me when I did that the one time. And so just do a pose, think of anything else, 3 seconds, sing the SpongeBob song if you have to, and then, move on.
Yeah. But if you don't succeed, no worries. And it takes, some people are naturals and they do it really easily. It's like, boom, they go on stage, they know exactly what they're doing. Some people, it takes practice. And some people, it's just not their thing, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. There is no shame in not wanting to go on stage, or if you are just constantly nervous. It's a matter of one, getting used to it. It's just like when you first start a new job. You have to learn the ropes. There's not a whole lot of teaching method for these kind of events, except for learning from your, more experienced people. So,
Yeah.
If the convention ever offers a practice run of a walk-on or a contest practice run or something, definitely attend, because they will go over stage presence, how to act on stage, where your markers are on that stage, and where to go when you get up on the, like, where the stairs are up, where the stairs are down, even places to look at, where you feel, if you're starting to feel that the butterflies tingling down there when you get to that first marker, what are, like, maybe if your character can do a pose where you are semi backwards and then you're looking back towards the audience, kind of thing, ways that to help you through the stage, on being on stage feel. A lot of the staff in those environments, I've done that many times, and can definitely help.
Yeah, I know one of the greatest advice, actually on my first walk on that I did in cosplay many years ago, actually one of the photographers had recommended that one of my best friends sit in the front row where I could see her, and then focus on her and her alone, and do it just like, she'd be like, if you've ever practiced in front of her, just focus on her, ignore everybody else, do it like you're strutting for her and everything. And it's a great way, because then if you've ever practiced in front of your friends, you're gonna do something silly, you're gonna be more relaxed and more flowy, and and those make great photos too. So it's definitely something to think about as well. Don't be afraid to ask the photographer, be like, hey, what was a good thing for my first time on stage? Because you photographers, what you're doing. I know, Casey, like, my first time ever shooting with you, you really helped me, because I never at that time had someone take photos of me professionally, or even in a professional-ish session. And you'd brought along some of my friends, and I don't remember exactly which cosplay it was. It was so long ago. It's been like 5+ years, if not more.
I don't know. I don't recall either. There's been a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, you had created an environment, though, that I could relax and have fun with it.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
that's
still
something I do personally as a photographer is try to find the humor in any kind of way to bring out the character of the cosplayer as well as the character of the character they're playing. If I know the character that they're playing, then I will try to figure out how to put the environment into a way that helps them fall into that character. If there was like a group photo shoot where it's like a bunch of cosplayers all in the same character show or whatever, that helps a ton because then that cosplayer is seeing other characters from the show and they can fall into that zone a little bit, and it all helps. So if that ever is a thing where the cosplayer is struggling to find that motivation, to find those poses, find those kinds of the feeling of being in that character, that could help with the photographer a bunch if it helps you to have people with you to do those kinds of photos and photo shoots. I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the controlled lighting at the convention. Excuse me. The same cosplay craze, we were actually set up for a photo booth area. This is a photo of Ian Keane. He is the AK Pirate Prince on all the social handles. And then in this shot, he is as Sanji from One Piece. Yeah, he's an excellent Sanji. He's been that character for a long, long time, and his personal favorite character, which is way cool.
Yes.
In this photo, there's a couple things I'd like to talk about. The one thing that we touched on a little bit was the lighting for having the flash light or from the phone or the strobe light from the top of the camera can be a little too much. In this photo, that happened. I didn't notice it until afterwards. But if you look at his eyebrow, you can see
that one spot.
You can see it.
Yeah. So that could be a number of things. It could have been the whatever I used to make the photo take the light shot. It could also be the stuff that he used to seal the makeup on his face was too much. It was maybe on too heavy. And I know we talked about makeup, or at least you guys talked about makeup in another episode of how important it is to have the proper makeup for what kind of photo or for what you're doing for the makeup's sake.
Yeah. Yes, because there's makeup you do for, like, if you're in person, makeup you do for photos, because they're slightly different. And I think Deborah knows more about that.
Yeah, well, that's something we definitely talked about quite a bit, actually, in a couple different episodes. In this case, it might be he might not even. I can't tell for sure if he used a sealant or not. But there is a type of sealant that one thing that could have prevented to help prevent that type of shininess is there's actually it's called a matte finish sealant, and that will actually help prevent that kind of shiny reflectiveness. But it also depends on, I don't know what he used for those eyebrows. It looked like there might have been stickers, but a matte finish might have helped.
I can actually zoom in on it. Let's see here. It's going to get bigger. So let's see if we can get a little closer to it. And then we'll go up a little.
I do know his skills and makeup for Sanji have been impeccable. So
I don't know if you can see there. One thing I do know, he definitely drew on the eyebrow.
Yeah, I think that might just be his natural skin from what it looks like. So it's probably just a little bit of just skin shine. anything like powder to another matte sealant could really help with the shininess there. But it tends to happen, especially if you're in a sweaty environment.
Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, a really bright, shiny light, and it's
yes. That's one reason why, like, if you ever watch celebrities like getting ready for whatnot, and they go do what's called the touch up, you always see them like dabbing powder and on the face, is because they've been under those really strong lights, and they're sweating, so they gotta dab it, otherwise they're gonna get very shiny, and it's gonna be very obvious that they're sweating. Because sweat can cause shininess, and unfortunately, photography picks it up really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, those sometimes the cameras that people are using are like when they take the photo, they are billboard size photos, so there can be very, very detailed and sometimes unwanted details. That's where photo editing comes in, where you can remove blemishes and other things.
That's a godsend.
Exactly. In this photo, just to talk a little bit more about the lighting in this one, we were still in the same room as that stage photo. We were just off to the left side of that stage. So we still were dealing with the above lights that were very orange and adding extra tone of orange. But then we had a strobe, or maybe two. Looks like we just had one that was in the wrong spot for Ian's reflection thing there. Other than that, it filled in the lighting of the whole area really well, including the backdrop. So the backdrop itself, although wrinkly, has light on it thanks to the strobe light that we used for the camera. So we were able to have a nice even light all the way around him, which was intended for controlled sake.
Yeah, it actually looks like on the very edges it's darker, and like right around him is like a halo of light.
Yeah, I could definitely see that a little bit,
Yeah, so that is post-editing. So I added in a vignette, which is basically adding a little bit of darkness around the edges of the photo. So what that does is trick your eyes into thinking that the outsides are not important and everything on the inside is.
Oh, so that's why, like, it kind of makes him. It pushes like his image forward. So it's like, oh, there's something back there, but your eye is naturally just drawn to him.
Yeah, it makes him pop way more too.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Okay. Another way to do that is with blurring. You'll see like iPhones and other phones, camera app stuff has a way to add blur effect around you as the subject or whoever you're taking a photo of. So that blur effect makes it also look like the background is the background and then you are the front of that photo. This vignetting is just a way to do that in photo processing, at least.
Nice.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the necessity for posing, and I think we can move into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this next photo is another photo of Ian in cosplay, and this one actually is a way to show off like a before or after or kind of thing. So he was specifically wanting to match this kind of pose. So he had pre-prepared how he wanted to be in the camera shot. So we had a reference photo to go off of and try to recreate in my own style of doing photography.
Yeah.
Yeah. So poses are definitely really important for, cosplayers because, as you can see here, he wanted to create the specific pose that this is what One Punch Man does. And Yeah. Um, and one of the things like I first learned when I was getting more into cosplay was when you're talking about poses, I'm always told you need to have 3 poses prepped. This way, you're not just doing it could. I believe most people call it the shy girl poses, where you have your hand on your arm and you're kind of shrinking yourself in. And while that works for some characters, especially if they are a shy character, if you're playing someone like One Punch Man here, doing the shy person poses isn't gonna really work because he, as far as I'm aware, he's not a shy person, you know. So yeah, definitely look up photos of the character. Look for artwork like this. If you see he's posing, you know, fist out, looks like he's getting ready to punch. He's flexing, very intimidating. And then this is the one thing that I know everyone's embarrassed to do: practice these poses in front of your mirror. Just like you would, you know, you used to sing in the mic, you sing in your hairbrush. You do that in front of the mirror. Do the same thing. You know, practice your pose in the front of the mirror. Don't. No one's gonna know. No one's gonna see it. And then, or if you even need to, get a friend and be like, okay, does this look right? Is this good and whatnot? You know, does this match the character, especially if they know the character well? So 3 poses is one thing I've been told by other photographers, and so it's definitely something that you should prepare. And in Ian's case here, I think did you already have it prepared, or did you say this was one he wanted to do?
Yeah, I remember in this photo shoot because, well, as I walked by, he was like, "Casey, let's get some photos done." Okay, cool, let's do it. So it was one of those spur of the moments, not really planned for, but I had used the lighting that was in the room. This was at Denina Center, and it had really good light from the outside as well as light from down below, from above, coming down below. And it had the silver wall behind him, so it provided for a really cool background that was different from the rest of the environment there. But he was like, "I have a photo that I want to take. Like, it's a pose specific." And I was like, "Oh, perfect. Let's recreate it." And so he just pulled it up. He showed it to me. I'm like, "All right, so we need to do basically a shot of you coming forward with your fist up. I'm gonna give you a little bit more body to fist ratio instead of how it is on the other reference photo, where you know it's kind of cutting off the top of his head a little bit, and you can't see the bottom of his arm there. So I wanted it to be a little further back so that we could get the cape in there, and that was what was the fun part about this. I had friends there with me who we worked together to time them picking up the cape and dropping it, stepping out of frame, and then letting me take the photo right when it was dropping to allow for him
how you did the cape. I was wondering because I was like, did you have a fan or something going?
What's ironic?
We have a human fan.
Yeah, what's funny is I've heard about people doing that with like capes and veils. Because unfortunately, due to me getting married, I've learned different photography poses for wedding photos, and they're like, "Yeah, get someone to throw up your veil and then run." And of course, that led to finding Reddit photos of people taking photos of the person running from the veil.
Yeah. Yep. And this shot here with Ian, I believe I even cropped in on it, so like the original photo might have been a little further back, because I might have had somebody's hand just falling just out of frame or just in frame with the original photo. And what was lucky too is there was no other shadow of that person that fell into the framing of the shot.
Oh,
yeah.
Because that would have been really hard to edit out. So it was luckily just the right amount of lighting to make this work with his cape and to make it look like exactly like the photo of reference. So it's very cool. Ian is a great subject for photography. He's done it a long time. He is always when someone asks for a photo of him when he's at conventions, he almost always goes into some kind of pose for each of the characters that he is. So he's if you ever see him at a con, definitely ask him about how he does it and maybe get some tips from him.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Ian I've talked to him a few times, and he was actually, I think he gave me some advice on like my first like on how to approach photographers and everything. So I definitely have a little bit of my confidence with him. So he's absolutely wonderful to speak with. Also, guys, don't be afraid to go, even just go say hi. He's a wonderful person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the description below, you'll see links to all the cosplayers that we're featuring today. So if you ever want to go check them out, definitely check them out down there.
Mm-hmm.
Go say hi to them.
Yeah.
Yes. Look at the mini
I have
cosplays.
I have two more pose examples I can show. One of them is a controlled environment that we used a flame with, but it's another photo with Ian. And then I have another photo of Cookie. And I would don't know. I think we'll do the one with Cookie because this photo is an interesting one because this was a shot on an iPhone.
Ooh.
Okay.
So this is a good example of exactly that, of just the powerfulness of a phone. It was the only camera I had with me for this event. I just didn't intend to take photos. And then they had asked me to do photos for their group. So I was like, well, I've got my phone, so we're going to make it work. And yeah, then I just kind of scouted locations, and we came across some areas that worked for school environment type backgrounds, and the lighting that I didn't have to do too much, adjusting to make it work for me. And the phone itself took really, really good photos.
Yep. I mean, like, all the photos I take for SenshiCon are done on my Samsung phone, so and it does actually really, really well. The only problem I've ever run into is I like to take lots and lots and lots and lots of photos, so I have to have enough storage ready to deal with the hundreds of photos I like to take.
Yep. I remember like almost every con I've shared a hotel room with you. You're up before bed, downloading all the photos, just get them off your phone so you can have room for the next day.
Yes, because I'm usually taking photos of everything from setup to takedown, and then everything in between. And it's so I've run into some of the same issues that Casey's talking about. Like, and I just have a cell phone camera that I'm just running around frantically with. But yeah, lighting becomes an issue. But phones can do amazing things. And I mean, if that's the camera, if you're not going to go into this professionally and you just want to get some fun photos for your friends, a phone camera is perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. The photos here and like all the other ones of that album all had a little bit of a blur to them in the background, but then the person in focus completely. And like, in each phone you can tap on it to be like, I want this to be in focus. I did that specifically to each one to make sure that they were in focus. But I also still did take the photos into an image processing software to enhance some of the colors, to pop them a little more, like the red on her or on their I don't know what it is. It's like a
ribbon,
like a tie, I think. I'm not sure. Is very bright red. Like it may be more bright red than necessary. I didn't notice that when I was editing it because I was also trying to get all the blues in the background to have a really cool pop to them, and all the other colors on their outfit, without affecting too much of the skin tone too. But there's only so much so much information you can change from on a phone photo than what you can on a professional camera photo. But yeah, you mentioned taking lots of photos. In most cases, I take somewhere between, depending on what's going on, somewhere between like 300 to 3,000 photos, depending on the event. And then I just go through each one later on.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, I really only need to keep this many, and it's like barely 100, if depending on what I'm taking, of course. Oops.
That's usually what happens with me. Is after the whole event is done, I'll go back and look through, and it's like there are some photos that I'm like, this is just me personally. I really like this photo. And then there are photos that are like, oh, this photo is useful. This photo, and then like the next 100 are not. And it's like, well, at least I had stuff to choose from. Otherwise, I had nothing. But yeah, no, it's sometimes as a photographer, you just take pictures. You don't think about, is this the right picture? Is this the wrong picture? You're just like, take the picture. We'll think about it later. When you're not in the middle of the moment and you've got like some time to think about it, and it's you've had distance from the event, you can look back and say, oh, was this a good photo? Was this a bad photo? Now, one thing you are mentioning, Casey, is a post-production program for the photos where you can edit them and change things. Is there a specific program you would recommend? Is there one you prefer personally, just for like recommendations for people? So if they're interested in going and like taking some photos themselves and going, oh, I want to try and learn how to tweak this. I want because this sounds like this was all just, I took pictures and then I taught myself what I wanted and liked.
Yeah, I very much did that. For me, starting off, I started with it was just the Adobe Lightroom. It was a paid service, of course, but at the time, it was I think they called it Creative Cloud, where you pay for that and then you get everything else. So that was kind of my start of getting into production, was to pay for all of the suite of the Adobe stuff, and then it came with all the goodies, like Lightroom, which is specifically for photo editing, raw photos as well as JPEG photos, for technicalities there. But to start off, phones have their own built-in like editing features, especially on iPhone. You can take a photo and then hit the little edit next to it, and you can fix that photo right there in the phone. There's of course apps that you can download too. One that actually, let me take a look. Phone apps that I've downloaded for photo editing have been, let me think here. I believe Photoshop has a free app version. Let's see here. Yeah, it's called PS Express. That one was free. And that one basically does the same thing, allows you to fix things and then add in some like watermarks, so you can watermark your photos. No one steals them, hopefully. And stuff like that. There are some others I can't think of. It's been a while since I've done editing on the phone, now that I've been offloading it to other apps. But those are really the two, is Photoshop and Lightroom are good software for computer editing. But in most cases, yeah, you can just edit with the phone, or even the platform that you're going to upload it to. Instagram, for instance, has a really powerful editing suite where you can go through and you can do a lot with that. Yeah. You can add that vignetting, you can add that blur, you can do all of the different color changes, you can even do filters that are already pre-made. And in some cases, those are better than going in and doing it yourself. But I definitely recommend going in and actually changing things and like boosting up the color or taking the color away based on the kind of photo you're wanting to get. That can always be pretty fun.
Yes. And it always takes practice and experimenting and being like, what does this look like? What does that look like? Ooh, bad button, wrong idea. Undo.
The undo button is your best friend.
Yeah. Yes, it is super helpful to be able to go back and
yes.
Let's try that again.
Yeah. One thing I always recommend is, if you're going to alter something, save a copy of the original and then make a copy that, like, say have one and then have the altered copy under a different name. That way, if you ever need to go back to the raw data, you can be like, oh, this is what it originally started as. This is what I altered it to. Oh, we have a guest appearance of a kitty.
Another guest on the show.
So I figured she could be the star of the show for a few seconds.
Yeah, always welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And we briefly talked about in the moment type photography. I've got a couple examples of when I went to SakuraCon. This will be real quick, but when I was in SakuraCon, I was wandering around just taking photos, asking for photos of really cool stuff, and just seeing things that just happened. So, for instance, this photo. So that's the just somebody cosplaying as the witch from Left 4 Dead video game, and this is a skit that she does. At least did every time I was there. I was there twice. So in 2 different years, they did the exact same thing. They stood at this glass and they would like put their hands on the glass and then like try to interact with the people on the other side of the glass. I don't know why. It just was something that would happen and people would laugh at it. And I'm like, I'm going to take a picture. So that was an in the moment, I'm just going to take this cool picture. And I've had this photo on my Facebook page shared multiple times because of it just being so strange and interesting. So if I had not taken that photo, people wouldn't have seen it and been laughing about it or sharing it. It's just so cool.
Yes.
I have another in the moment photo real quick to share, and that one is this one, which is is basically 2 characters from 2 different video games, both of which I believe smoke. And these 2 guys were literally standing there having a smoke, talking to each other. And I walked by and then I like did that double take and walked back, and I just asked him, do you guys mind if I just like, can I take a photo of you guys smoking? Because you're both in character, but you're also out of character. And again, I was just blown away by how cool that situation was that they had made just because they're 2 people having a smoke. So I took the photo.
That's beautiful.
It's so good. Solid Snake and Gordon from both Metal Gear Solid and Half-Life.
Okay.
Which just makes it even better because it's from 2 completely different animes. And it's just like, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it looks like they're in the middle of a conversation. So they're just being themselves. The other cool thing, another fun thing about this photo was the recognition that I got from it. So when I took this photo as just kind of this is a cool moment, I'm going to capture it. Again, got shared a lot and commented on quite a bit. People being like, yes, this is the exact kind of pairing that I wanted to see. So that recognition of people liking the photo that I took is super nice as a photographer.
Yeah. But one thing you were bringing up, Casey, is that as you were going around, you were asking people for, like, there are moments where you do capture a photo just because you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, and you take a photo. But there is something you always need to consider is sometimes you're just taking a photo for your own personal self, but it's always nice to ask and get consent, because while a person may be cosplaying, that doesn't mean that they like signed some sort of agreement of, yes, I'm cosplaying, everyone may take my picture whenever they want.
Yeah, I know that that's not a huge problem here up in Alaska, since one, because we are a smaller community, we don't have quite that mentality of entitlement yet, I've noticed with our photographers up here. Whereas,
Mhm.
thankfully, like so far, every photographer I've ever encountered, me personally, I can't speak for other people's experiences for other photographers up here, but I've always thankfully had the pleasure of people always asking for permission up here. Whereas my experience in lower 48, because there is that huger community, photographers down there I'm not saying all photographers, by the way, guys. This was just like one or two bad experiences on my part, where I had photographers who just come, snap photos, and then leave. And like they didn't bother asking for permission. They didn't bother seeing if I was even ready or okay with them taking these photos. I had people try to take photos while I was in compromising positions or situations, and I'm just like, why are you trying to take a photo when I'm here trying to fix my top and whatnot, and it's not okay to be taking that photo. So definitely, I know. Asking whenever a photographer asks for consent, the amount of appreciation me as a cosplayer feels is just a huge relief for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely,
now,
as the photographer, you should be reading the situation too. Like if that cosplayer, yes, is in cosplay, but eating food, sitting on the ground, or like enjoying their environment for themselves, maybe not the best time to ask for a photo. Because then they have to present myself. How's my makeup? I was just eating food. That kind of thing. Try not to do that. They will appreciate you not asking in those situations.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are times when people are giving they're doing something. They're either they're on stage and they're like, yes, I know I'm going to walk on stage and people are going to admire me and they're going to take pictures. And then there's when people are doing some sort of crazy thing, that one picture you had, Casey, of the woman of the cosplayer against the glass. It's well, that's an instance where it's they're doing something. They're take a photo of it and they will be happy because this is they're trying to do something photo worthy. And it actually speaking of, this reminds me of something I saw at one of I went to SakuraCon 2017, and I just remember there was a Link cosplayer going, I think they were going up the escalator and I was going down an escalator, and they are, I don't know if it was a male or female, so they were standing there with the sword out like this the whole way up, and I'm just frantically trying to get a picture because I thought it was just the greatest thing ever. And that's those are one of those moments where it's what they're doing, and they're if I always have that's kind of the attitude where it's yeah, no, this is the time where I'm doing something worthy of picture taking. Please take my picture.
Yeah. I think in that instance, definitely, as the cosplayer, they are aware they're doing something silly. Therefore, your photo is going to get taken. And I know, an instance, I met they were cosplaying the robot from Undertale. I can't remember. It's something with an M, I think. I don't remember. The very sassy, dramatic robot character. And they did a whole bunch of sassy poses on the escalator going down. And I was just they're going to take photos, right? They're yeah, no, I fully expect it. And I want them to. And I'm just you do you, my friend.
Yeah. I know those are the instances where it's just those are those moments where if you capture them just at the right second, it's just this is my favorite photo. Every other planned photo was there, but this one, because I found it out in the wild, it just becomes that much more special.
For sure. It's always fun finding those ones too.
Yes.
Yeah. Whenever you're scrolling through the tags for SensiCon and whatnot, you find that photo, just I didn't know someone took a photo of me in this instance, because I was just doing something weird and they got a photo. It's honestly, it's so much fun though, because it's just oh, someone was actually there. I'm mildly embarrassed. At the same time, thank you for catching this moment.
Yeah. But still, consent is very important. Never think that you as a photographer are entitled to take a picture. Yes, there are instances where we snap that photo because we're just like, oh my God, that's so amazing. But still, use common sense, use common courtesy, and ask.
Yeah, definitely. Like we were saying, just kind of read the person. Or if they're, sitting down, with their shoes off, probably not the best time. Or if they're eating, but if they're just walking around, go up and ask. Or if they're doing something silly, at that point, read to see if they're just doing it for, giggles and whatnot, or if it's a legit, like a serious moment where like maybe they're legit having something important going on. So maybe not the best time to be taking a photo. Just read the person, read the room, kind of see what the feel is. And that's when you can kind of gauge, like, okay, should I ask or should I just snap?
Speaking of settings,
of the well, if I may, real quick, the other part of that, reading the situation as the photographer, as the cosplayer, you also can say no, like, no, don't take my photo. Now's not a good time, but we can maybe set up a time later. It's okay to do that. The photographer will understand and may even be more thankful for that, because then the setting can be set up a little better for that environment and that photo.
Yep. And speaking of setting, Casey, you actually have some suggestions for like how to make a setting a good place to take photos. Like if you're setting up a photo shoot, what are some things that you would recommend to photographers and to cosplayers to maybe have going on so that they have a good working environment?
I touched on it a little bit earlier, but to reiterate, the environment of, like if you're in a indoor space where you can set up a speaker and some music, show music, or something from the show that the character is in, or maybe even just music that person enjoys listening to that can put them in the zone. Because if you're not shooting any video, you can definitely have other sound happening in the room that can help alleviate that, like the just quietness. Because anxiety and stress and uncertainty can come from when nobody's talking. And sometimes we experience that here, even in this podcast, where if no one talks, okay, who's going to go first? Kind of thing happens, and you can definitely see that in many of this kind of show or other stuff. But if you have that background sound, just something that is breaking the ice, as it were, that can help get the cosplayer or help the person who's getting the photos done just kind of be more in the zone and ready to be characterized. And hey, you can even like talk about the shows of interest or of other things, and getting the smiles to come out, basically pop a joke, just have fun with the environment, make it feel comfortable and relaxed. Offer a drink if that's a thing. Definitely offer water, because in front of proper studio photography lighting, those lights can get very hot. And when the cosplayers are in front of those lights, they can really start to dehydrate very quickly. And you'll start to see sweat and the unwantedness in your photos. So definitely be aware of that scenario. If possible, turn on some AC, keep the room cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything we had for photography and posing. Any last minute things to add, Casey, Deborah?
I don't think so. We went over quite a bit. At least a lot of stuff of that I've dealt with doing photography over the years, from working with professional cosplayers and people who are new to it and just wanting photos done. It literally is just to go out and do it and get used to that environment by just going out there and having fun. If you can, try to have fun. If it's not having fun, maybe the photos won't come out good. You just kind of be aware of that. You can always reschedule shoots.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Also, one thing we've always talked about is, take care of yourself too. So if you're not feeling great that day, don't be afraid to reschedule, because I'm sure the photographer will appreciate it too later down the line, because I'm sure they don't want one to risk being exposed to whatever you're feeling. Like if it's a cold or even the flu, for heaven's sake, you know, just stop, take care of yourself, reschedule it for another day or another week even. And then like we were also mentioning, you know, cosplay is not consent, even with photography. You guys can say no.
Correct.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that appears to be everything we have on photography and posing. We thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and thank you so much, Casey, for joining us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Say bye. Say bye to the cat.
Say bye-bye. Bye-bye to the cat.
Bye-bye.
Well, everyone, we will be join us again in 2 weeks, where we will have another episode. Subject pending. If you have any suggestions or recommendations to us, feel free to leave a suggestion, and also keep an eye out. We are looking for horror stories or just cosplay stories in general. Send us either leave a comment or send an email to Deborah's email address. That should be in the comments. But again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Casey, for joining us. And we hope you have an excellent weekend. Hopefully the sun sticks around.
Yes.
Hope so too.
Yep.
All right, bye, you guys. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.